But what? So Abigail is actually a Hebrew name, and I'll try to pronounce it. Abigalia, or so, I don't know. I don't speak Hebrew, but it's translated as my father's joy, or my father is exuberant, my father rejoices, my father's joy. And the title Abigail from the Bible in, in the Old Testament, a woman with God's own pose. Well, I mean, it's out from God Speaks to Women Today by Eugenie Price. As I remember, it was published back in 1964. But it's a lot of these things can be true for 21st century women folk. Yeah. Anyways, so if you want to reread 1 Samuel chapter 25, go ahead, do that before you continue on with this, listening to this Bible study vlog. So, as I was saying, I'm going to read how Eugenie Price set up how she brought the story to life. Okay. Okay. Young David had already been anointed by Hannah's son, Samuel, to be God's choice as the next king of Israel. But Saul still sat uncertainly on his throne. Because of his erratic mental condition, one day forgiving David for his imagined slights, and next seeking to kill him, David has become a wandering shepherd. I always wonder in the past when I've read, 1 Samuel and the story between what happened between David and Saul, and then I always get confused, but I guess it makes sense that perhaps Saul has become mentally ill and just can't, and I guess he let his jealousies or whatnot happen to affect him, so that his relationship with David has changed. Before, he was kind to David. They had a good relationship, and plus David was good friends with Saul's son, Jonathan. Like, Jonathan and David, were best friends, So let's go back. Okay. So now, since Saul is seeking David and want to kill him off, so because Saul feel like his privilege to be a king is being undermined, and want to secure his throne by killing off David, It's really common practice back in the day to kill off your rivals so you can be king or still continue to be king. Anyways, so David had gathered around him 600 followers, and although they lived off other people's property, like most marauding bands of nomads, David's men usually gave service in exchange for food and supplies. So, yeah, they help out to get food and supplies from other people. Hey, that's being fair, actually. But other, nomads or thieving nomads just take and be entitled to it, but not David and his men. They're we need to give service so we can have food and supplies, because right now we're houseless. They don't have homes, actually. David has been ran off out of his home by Saul. So yeah, he's wandering with 600 of his followers. Shortly after the death of old Samuel, who was a prophet. Um, During shearing season in the sheep and goat country west of the Dead Sea, David and his men had given unusual protection to the flocks of a rich man named Nabal, whose lavish estate was built on a high, lush plateau just beyond the bare valleys and limestone hills near the city Carmel. For days, David and his men had stood guard, forming a wall of protection around Nabal's flocks and herdsmen as they round up the sheep for shearing. The supplies were gone, and fully justified in his request, David sent 10 of his men to Nabal's house to ask for food. The large house swarmed with busy servants and guests. At shearing time, Nabal's house was always like a huge hotel, where the kitchens poured forth all manner of rich foods. David knew this, but he did not know Nabal. Because Nabal's wife Abigail was such a capable, intelligent woman, Nabal left the management of the feasting to her. That is so funny. Not funny, but I feel a connection to something else. But since she's pretty capable and intelligent, Nabal's like, oh, I'll let my wife run the household and everything. Kind of reminds me of the time when another biblical character, Joseph, yes, when he was bought by a wealthy man who recognized Joseph, intelligence, recognized by being with that Joseph had this supernatural power to bless, But it's really, if you remember, right, God is the one who blessed Joseph with a lot of blessings. So, and Joseph ran that wealthy man's household, and not just the household, but the whole estate, If you think about it, I think it's really common even in real life, even today's world, where wealthy people who can't do it all, and they recognize finding intelligent people to help run their estates, but for the foolish wealthy people who actually have their overseers, estate managers to do everything, and just party up and just show up to eat food and just lay around or go off to do work or whatnot. So, Abigail, she's running this household now. Day in and day out, the rich man did nothing but eat and drink, so he stayed perpetually drunk. The few hours he slept each night made no difference. He woke in the mornings for one reason only, to drink still more. I mean, when he wake up, he don't have to work. His servant is the one who's shearing the sheep, during that part of the year. Even during his rare sober moments, Nabal was a bore. Rough, loud, cheerless, bad-tempered. Unfortunately, David's men met him, and not his wife, with their request for food. Greetings from our master David. Peace to you. Peace to your home. Peace to all you possesses. As David's 10 men made their plea for food, Nabal scowled, half listening, swaying unsteadily on his feet, gulping from his liquor from an emptiest bowl, cursing every drop he spilled. The spokesman for David finished his request, and Nabal's shepherds verified the help they had received in the hills outside Carmel. Nabal was not impressed. Well, not impressed. Who is David and who is Jesse's son? Infuriated, he spewed a mouthful of liquor at them. There are many servants nowadays running away from their masters, Should I then take my food, my wine, and the meat I have butchered for my own shearers, and give it to persons from whom I do not know where? Get out! All of you, get out! Well, it's not really his hard work. Again, it's really his wife overseeing everything, and the servants who are doing all the hard work. Anyways. When David heard this, he ordered his men to gird on their swords. 200 remained with the supplies, and 400, led by David himself, began their march on Nabal's estate. David's anger ran high. So, out protecting this fellow's belonging in the desert so that he missed nothing, prove all useless, he is returning evil for good? May God do so to David's enemies, and worse if, of all he has, I leave a single male alive by morning. The servants, anticipating David's action against them, hurried to their mistress, Abigail. As always, she listened patiently. To make amends for another's born buried from her foolish husband was nothing new to Abigail. She knew him through and through. After the servants told her the fact about David's protection of their flocks and about Nabal's vulgar behavior, they urged her to consider the whole thing carefully, warned her that David would make quick reprisal against their household. Consider well that you are to do, Mistress Abigail. Your sore disaster has been decided on for our master and for his entire household. We have come to you because our master is such a son of Belial, nobody can talk to him. Abigail was far too wise even to try reasoning with her husband in his condition, and so she set to work on her own. In record time, she oversaw the preparation and packing of enough food and wine for 600 men, mounted on a donkey behind the train of animals, and servants bearing the food. She followed them out into the mountainous desert where David and his men were at that moment coming toward her. They met each descending a steep mountain pass. Abigail dismounted quickly, fell on her face before David, and bowed to the ground at his feet and said, Oh, me, sir, falls the blame. Allow your maid, please, to address you, and listen to your servant's words. David stared at this beautiful, refined, richly dressed woman kneeling before him. Let my master pay me no attention, I beg of you, to this worthless man, my husband Nabal. He is just like his name, foolish, wicked, and drunk most of the time. He is a fool, for I, your maid, did not see the men my master sent. I am the only responsible one at Nabal's house. On me, sir, falls the blame for this dreadful thing. The woman raised her face to look at David now, and he was struck with her intelligence and pose. So then, sir, Abigail went on, as the Lord lives and as you live, when the Lord has restrained you from bloodshed, from taking the law in your own hands, may your enemies and all who plan against you fare like Nabal. David's mind turned rapidly. This was surely a woman of uncommon ability and good judgment, and yet she was there to leave her home without her husband. I mean, back then you're not supposed to leave your home without your husband, or at least an escort. Sensible, too, he reasoned, and his quick eye took in the enormous load of food she had brought. Please pardon your maid's conduct, Abigail seemed to his thoughts as well. For the Lord shall certainly set you up a lasting dynasty, because you, my master, are fighting the Lord's battles, and no evil is found in you for all your life. Should anyone undertake to prosecute you and to seek your life, then my master's soul will be wrapped in the bundle of life with the Lord your God. David wondered at her words, and as the woman herself, in silence and admiration and respect. Then when the Lord has fulfilled all his good promises to you, my master, has made you prince over Israel, then your heart will suffer from no self-accusation for my master's shedding blood without pause, and for taking the law in his own hand. And when the Lord has prospered my master, then remember your servant girl. David has watched her rise to her feet and step modestly back a few steps. Then he thought thoughtfully, as though they had been talking together for a long time and knew each other well. Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you today to meet me. Blessed be your good judgment, and blessed be you for restraining me from the guilt of bloodshed and from taking the law into my own hands. For as surely as the Lord God of Israel lives, who kept me from hurting you, if you had not hurriedly met me, not a male around Nabal will have been left alive by the break of day. David gratefully accepted her gift to him and his men, and said to her from his heart, Go back home in peace, and remember, I have listened to your voice and your words, and personally, I like you. Abigail was too wise to tell Nabal any of this until morning. The shock was so great to him, he died soon after. Well, soon after, like 10 days after, Later, David the king sent for Abigail, who became one of his 8 wives. I don't know. I mean, from the Bible passage, remember, let me look it up. She left soon after, I don't know, after that moment when David became king. I don't know the timeline that well. But let's get back to... Okay, so David sent messengers to Abigail. And she responded to the marriage proposal. She bowed down with her face to the ground and said, Here is your maidservant, ready to serve you and wash the feet of my master's servants. Abigail quickly got on a donkey and, tended by her 5 maids, went with David's messengers and became his wife. I mean, so, yeah. I don't know the time. I have a hard time keeping track, but maybe there's a cheat sheet somewhere to give a timeline of David when the general idea when he was born, and how he grew up, how God watched out, and how David gave his life to God and has the heart of God, or what was the saying again that David's known for? Anyway, so yeah. Anyways, so now let's analyze it. I mean, Abigail, a woman with God's own poise. I didn't come up with that terminology. Sassy. Eugenie Price. She's the one who titled see her as that. I mean, it didn't explain the Bible. I mean, God didn't call her that. A woman with God's own poise, But I think Eugenie Price agrees with me that we believe Abigail did believe in God. God, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob God, Yahweh, Anyways, let's see. Every woman with a husband who is difficult for any reason cannot be sure that things will turn out as well as they did for Abigail. Every woman with an alcoholic husband must not be led to believe that if she obeys God, uses her highest intelligence, and acts on her knowledge of what is right, as Abigail did, she will be set free of the day in and day out burden of such a husband. This is not the point here. Again, this lesson is not a point about trusting God will make you escape, things, The point, as I see it, is this. Well, Eugenie Price sees it. Abigail did use her highest intelligence, and in case this was real wisdom, but she was able to do it and retain her pose in the process because she truly believed God. Now, here we must think about through what truly believe really means. Relevant to our story about Abigail, the room with God's own poise, it means this. If we are to act in the tight places as though we really believe what we claim, we must realize that believing includes seeing realistically as God sees. Seeing realistically as God sees. Yeah, to really see how God sees things, we need God and get to know God's character by really studying His Word. That's the Bible that He gives us. That God breathed into the words inside the Bible. Anyways, so Abigail was realistic about her husband, Nabal. He was a fool, a drunkard, a crude, ridiculous man. She knew this, and she accepted it. Her acceptance did not change him, but it did free her to avoid the pitfalls of self-pity. The pitfall of self-pity. This woman didn't have time for self-pity. She has to do her own work, and her husband's too. Wow, she's doing a lot. Being an overseer and a mistress and being leader of the household and her husband's estate to make sure everything's done. And the way she is the state, the servants seem to look up to her, respect to her, that when trouble brewing and what's happened between Nabal, her husband, and this young, handsome man named David, who's a wandering person, who is a promised future king, the servants ran to her because they trust that she can diffuse this conflict and prevent any violence to happen. This woman didn't have time for self-pity. Again, she's busy doing a lot of work. And she did it with the very poise of God. Well, Eugenie Price explained it. I'm not sure it's poise of God explanation, but human definition of how she explains it. But she was able to do her work and her husband's work because she believed in God. And she trusts God help her with that. She able to have her wisdom and poise came from God. That she ended up as David's wife is scarcely the issue. Abigail was being Abigail before David. As far as she was concerned, she would never see the handsome young man again after that day in the mountain pass. She returned home to wait until morning to tell her husband. He died soon afterwards, so she was at last free of him. That's the point. Give me a second. Again. Okay. Okay. So is also not the point. Abigail was going to die. She had gone child, making that most of her dreadful situation before and after meeting David. Only God can give pose like Abigail when a cooperate, 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 cooperated with him and with Eugenie Price. She read from the text, 1 Samuel chapter 25, and from, Abigail's response and her speech to David, she keep mentioning God. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know how many you believe that God, believe that Abigail believed in God, but yeah, I think she did. Abigail did her best to follow God with what she knew. I hope that when she became David's wife in the future, well, sometime, I don't know when, but that she was able to grow in her faith and 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 her closer to God. So, yeah. I mean, there's a reason. We read from again from the Bible that David noticed her intelligence and her poise and the way she says things to make him understand, and he praised her for, like, praise you for helping me turn away from before committing sin, like before the bloodshed happened. You reminded me to trust in God's justice about unfairness and injustice situations. So, yeah. I mean, it's a pretty good study. I hope you enjoyed this, learning about Abigail and death. And I never thought of, studying, but thanks to Eugenie Price's book, I am getting to know, some biblical characters that I didn't know. I mean, I know a bit, but not. Actually, I kind of forgotten. Actually, I forgot about Abigail. There's a lot of minor female characters throughout the Bible that, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the big ones, Mother Mary, the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ is a one major female. Then, Esther, and there's Ruth, and those are the major ones, and then there's other subcategory major ones like Mary Magdalene, and then there's the sisters, Martha and Mary, they also have a brother, Lazarus, which I don't really know. I need to study about him, but I think I want to do more study about Martha and Mary. I mean, I did own stuff, but Eugenie Price has some great points, and I want to get into it and reread the text more about Mary and Martha. I mean, that's something to look forward to next when I share it with you when I get some study on, okay? Thank you, and God bless you all. Have a good day.